Your house is on fire, but you refuse to leave because you know every room by heart. That's how deep the programming goes. You'd rather burn in familiar pain than step into an unfamiliar path. This is the silent pact you've signed with mediocrity. By the end of this video, you'll finally understand why you keep choosing the same jobs you hate, the same financial habits that drain you, the same routines that make you numb. It's not because you're weak. It's because you've been conditioned to confuse comfort with safety, routine with stability, stagnation with identity. The real cost of your comfort zone is the slow death of your inner fire, and you don't even realize you're paying it. You've heard the lies. Better the devil you know, don't rock the boat, must stick with what you have. But what if what you have is rotting your spirit? The system doesn't need chains to keep you in place. It just needs to teach you to love your cell. And you do. You love the predictable paycheck that barely covers your bills. You love the coffee on autopilot, the soul-draining routine, the fake safety of your health insurance, because all of it feels familiar. But familiar doesn't mean safe. Familiar is just the name you gave to unresolved trauma. Your comfort zone is a padded prison, and the key is in your hand. But you won't turn it because outside that door lies what you can't control: the unknown, the uncertain, freedom. The system knows that your fear of loss is stronger than your desire for gain, so it hands you a tolerable level of pain and whispers, "Stay." And you do. Silently, like a prisoner who memorized the rhythm of the guards and the sound of the locks. Your brain has been trained to fear freedom, because freedom requires choice, and choice is terrifying. I was there too. I built excuses, postponed dreams, told myself I just needed more time, more money, more courage. But the truth was, I was afraid of being free, afraid to leave the role of victim and step into the unknown, until I realized, as long as I cling to familiar pain, I will never meet unfamiliar wealth. That was the moment everything changed. Because change begins where fear ends, and fear ends when you face it directly, without anesthesia, without distraction, without another empty promise. Just you, your truth, and the key in your hand. You think you're making choices, but you're just avoiding risks. Every time you consider leaving your job, starting a business, pursuing something bold, something stops you. It's not logic, it's not timing, it's not money, it's emotional programming. A phantom called status quo bias whispering, "What if it fails? What if it's worse than now? What if you lose everything?" And in that exact moment, your survival brain kicks in. You freeze. You retreat. Not from danger, but from the possibility of something new. Because the pain you know, you already manage. You know its patterns, its weight, its soundtrack. It's become part of your identity. And anything that threatens that identity feels more dangerous than the pain itself. That's not laziness, it's emotional trauma. A loyalty to suffering that once protected you, and now imprisons you. You think you're afraid of failure. But the brutal truth is, you're afraid of success. Because success demands a version of you that doesn't exist yet. A version that takes risks, that faces rejection, that breaks generational patterns, that loses control. And that version terrifies you. Because becoming her requires mourning the old you. The one who played small, who avoided conflict, who found comfort in limitations. So you stay. Because staying doesn't require grief. And no one taught you how to grieve for your past self without guilt. You were trained to survive, never to evolve. Here's the paradox. You're miserable, but afraid to be happy. You're exhausted, but afraid to rest. You're caged, but afraid of the key. Because freedom is a dark road, no maps, no signs, no guarantees. And your brain was trained to avoid the dark, even if everything you want lives on the other side of it. So you stay. Because staying is easier than facing the guilt of growing. Guilt born from questions like, who do you think you are? What if people say you've changed? What if it works on too well? Yes, even success scares you. Because success separates. It isolates. It forces you into a version of reality that your tribe doesn't recognize. That's the real fear, not of failure, but of becoming unrecognizable. But the answer isn't in planning more or waiting for the right time. The answer is in confronting fear like a cruel but necessary mentor. It won't disappear, but you can choose to let it ride in the passenger seat while you drive. Because freedom begins with an inner rebellion, to say no to the comfort of pain, and yes to the uncertainty of power. And that changes everything. It's not stability. It's emotional control disguised as routine. Every time you feel a moment of relief when your paycheck arrives, that's not freedom. It's conditioning. The system gives you just enough to prevent you from collapsing, but never enough to escape. Like feeding a prisoner with calibrated rations. He survives, but never grows stronger. You call it stability. But the real name is fear management. Fear of loss keeps you obedient, tame, predictable. The system doesn't have to threaten you. It only needs to offer predictability. Predictability is addictive because it gives you the illusion of control. And controlling feels safer than risking. You think stability is a reward, but it's a contract. An unconscious deal where you trade your autonomy for symbolic safety. You stay in place because you believe that leaving costs too much. But no one showed you the cost of staying. Staying costs energy, time, lost connections, dreams buried in routine. Staying costs your soul, diluted in bills paid on time. You don't feel it because you're numb. But every month, a part of you dies. And that death is celebrated with Saturday pizza and mindless scrolling. Congratulations, you're killing yourself in comfort, and the system rewards you for it. Calls you responsible, balanced, an adult. Because a tired adult is a predictable adult. One who accepts Mondays as sentences, not choices. One who sells 40 hours a week for a fabricated sense of safety. One who consumes to forget, works to survive, and survives to maintain the illusion. You've become the defender of your own prison. And the more you defend it, the more you convince yourself that freedom is reckless, risky, unrealistic. It's not. Freedom is for those who are tired of dying quietly. But here's the twist. Stability doesn't exist. What exists is anesthesia, an emotional numbness that keeps you from noticing that your life has stopped moving. The world changes, rules shift, people evolve, but you stay clinging to a job you hate, a routine that drains you, a lifestyle that dims you. When it all collapses, and it will, you'll call it a crisis. It's not a crisis. It's a consequence. The result of mistaking control for identity. Identity for safety. Safety for life. Wake up. You're not alone when you make a decision. There's always a shadow standing behind your "I can't, not yet. That's not for me." This shadow has a name. Your sabotaging self. Not an enemy, a younger version of you, built to protect you when you couldn't protect yourself. A frozen trauma acting like a bodyguard. It once served you, but now it runs your life from the shadows. It's cautious, loud, relentless, and you still obey it like your life depends on it. And in some twisted way, it does. That sabotaging self doesn't fear failure, it fears attempting. Because attempting is exposure, risk, vulnerability. So it moves fast before anything new can bloom. It floods you with distractions, justifies your fatigue, keeps you busy with the urgent while burying what matters. You think it's procrastination. It's not. It's obedience. You're responding to the survival instincts of a wounded child still afraid that change equals death. It's not rational, but it's powerful. Because the mind doesn't seek truth. It seeks the familiar. And familiar pain feels safer than unknown power. The sabotaging self fears your success, because success kills its narrative. If you rise, it dies. So it sabotages with elegance. It wraps fear in logic, dresses doubt as responsibility, camouflages paralysis with perfectionism, and you obey. Because it speaks in your voice, wears your memories, and knows your weak points. It doesn't scream. It whispers. What if they leave you? What if you lose yourself? What if you shine too much? But here's what it can't control. Your awakened self. The part of you that chooses action over fear. That says yes to uncertainty. That walks without guarantees. This part grows stronger every time you move in spite of panic. It doesn't want to kill the saboteur. Just stop following it. Because the saboteur is a chapter, not your identity. A past survival tool, not a future compass. Once you see that, the whole map changes. You've been here before, standing at the edge, feeling the pull to leap and the weight dragging you back. It's the exact moment where the old and the new fight for your soul. And almost every time, the old wins. Because it knows you. It raised you. It comforted you through breakdowns. It's familiar, and familiarity feels safer than freedom. That's why real change requires a ritual, a symbolic break from everything you once called safety. Without that, no transformation survives, because fear always returns, and you return to it. Every leap begins with grief. Grief for the version of you that survived but never lived, that worked hard but never thrived, that loved with fear, that wanted more but apologized for desiring it. That version deserves respect, but also a burial, not with shame but with honor. It got you here, but it cannot take you forward. The passage begins in silence, when you stop defending the pain, when you stop identifying with lack, when you realize emotional safety isn't about staying the same, it's about having the strength to change. And that strength doesn't come from the world. It comes from within, from a moment of brutal truth that screams, enough. Enough of the loop. Enough of hiding behind "at least I have a job." Enough of shrinking your potential to fit someone else's expectations. The life you want does exist, but it demands the death of the life you tolerate. That is the ritual. That is the crossing. Saying goodbye to the known without knowing what's next. But knowing that staying is no longer an option. Because the real boundary isn't money or time, it's symbolic. It's the day your soul screams louder than your fear. And you listen. No one can do this for you. There's no manual, no guarantee, just courage. Courage to walk into the dark with nothing but your truth in your chest and fire in your eyes. Courage to lose comfort, lose labels, lose the self-image others hold of you, in exchange for something no one can hand you. Inner sovereignty. The power to choose, fail, try again. Not to guarantee success, but to interrupt the cycle of emotional submission. To die as a prisoner and be born as a creator. A creator of a life that doesn't yet exist, but begins the moment you cross. You've spent your whole life avoiding change. But here's the truth. Change is already happening. Quietly. Daily. Every time you choose fear over action, routine over growth, comfort over truth. Change is happening. Just not the one you want. You're not standing still. You're fading. Inch by inch. Until all that remains is a name on a paycheck and a numbed-out shell. And still, you resist. Because the real fear isn't losing. It's becoming. Becoming everything you were meant to be, and having no excuse not to shine. The system never had to cage you. You did that on your own. You picked the cell with a decent view, a fixed salary, predictable plans, manageable anxiety, because all of it feels familiar. But comfort can be a coffin. And now you know. Now you see. And you can't unsee. That's the curse of awareness. Once you recognize the prison, even the prettiest parts turn cold. What you do now is entirely yours. Fear won't leave. It will stalk you. Speak in your voice. Offer reasons, logic, memories. But now you have something it doesn't. Consciousness. And consciousness is freedom in raw form. The moment you look at your familiar pain and say, I will no longer call this home. That's the break. That's the unbinding. That's the day you rise. Not because fear is gone, but because you choose to stop obeying it. Your wealth lives beyond fear. And I don't mean just money, I mean power, presence, purpose. A life you don't have to escape from. A life that moves you, stretches you, makes you burn and breathe and build. But it only begins after the crossing. Not with guarantees and with choice. Your brain prefers the known, even if it's killing you. Because change feels unsafe. And your nervous system was trained to protect, not expand. But what if safety is already the threat? This isn't about taking risks, it's about reclaiming the part of you that was programmed to avoid life. The map below isn't advice, it's interruption. Because the final truth is this: you're not afraid of change, you're afraid of who you'll become when you're finally free. If you've made it this far, you're no longer asleep. But awakening is only the beginning. Now choose. Keep pretending comfort, or cross the line. Ritual of rupture. Comment below. I choose change. Send this video to someone who's stuck and calls it life. Subscribe and join the front lines of those who break the cycle. Your pain is familiar, your wealth is a stranger until you cross.